Hello, here we're back with Chapter 4, working on Lecture 2. This time we're going to look at the seller's gains from trade. And before we do that, the first thing to talk about is the cost to sellers. And so sellers pay cost to produce and or sell goods and services. And we have a cost per unit, just like we had the benefit utility per unit, marginal utility. We have a cost per unit. This is called the marginal cost. And this tells us the cost of producing an additional unit. So if we're baking cakes down here, the marginal cost would be the cost of producing each additional cake. Then our total cost just adds up the marginal cost numbers. So it'd be the marginal cost for the first cake, second cake, third cake, and marginal cost for how many cakes that we do produce. And a good way to measure our marginal cost is by the willingness to sell. This is the least amount a seller is willing to sell a good or service for. And that should just cover the cost of production. So your willingness to sell is a good way to measure the marginal cost. Because the lowest price I'm willing to sell at is one that just covers my cost of production. And the cost of production would be my explicit cost. In this case, if it's cakes, it's the cost of the materials, the flour and the sugar and the eggs, and the energy to bake the cakes plus your time. And your time would be your implicit cost because you could be doing something else with your time besides baking cakes. So we have 7 potential sellers of cakes here, and we're going to put them on the table based on the lowest WTS to the highest. And so Jack's is willing to sell the cakes at the lowest cost, the lowest price, and that'll be $2. Probably has no opportunity cost in terms of his time. $2 may just cover the explicit cost, the flour, the sugar, the eggs, and so forth. Amir looks like has about a little bit more implicit cost in terms of what else Amir could do with his time, and so on. Tessa has a little bit more of a higher cost. Tessa probably has something else that Tessa could do that has a little bit more higher value than Amir. Vera, again, has a higher marginal cost, and so on. And then Jade looks like has the highest implicit cost, where Jade could be doing something else of a lot more value than spending time baking the cakes for the market. And then our total cost would be the marginal cost added together. And so if only Jack's would bake a cake, we would have $2 of total cost. And if Amir comes in and bakes a cake, that'd be another $4, bring it up to $6. And then if Tessa comes in and bakes a cake, that adds 6 to 6, that's 12. And then Vera would add 10 for 22. Milo would add 12 to 34. Hugo would add 18, which would bring it up to 52. And then Jade would come in and add 20, bring it up to 72. Now we can transfer the marginal cost numbers, your willingness to sell over here to the table. And so we'll go with Jack's as $2 of cost. And that'll be the bar for Jack's, and that represents the marginal cost measured by the willingness to sell it. And then Amir has $4, right about there. And so we'll create a bar graph where the height of the bar represents the marginal cost. Then we have Tessa for $6 of cost. And Vera has 10. Milo has 12. Hugo has 18. And Jade has $20 of cost. So again, every one of these bars represents the marginal cost. That's the marginal cost for Jade. That's the marginal cost for Jack's. And so again, this would be the $2 of cost. That would be the 4, 6, 10, 12, 18, and then 20. Because our cost, each cake is costing more and more to bake in terms of the materials and time, we're going to find that our total cost is increasing at an increasing rate, which is acceleration. Now, just like with consumers, there's a producer surplus. And this is the difference between the price a seller receives, which is the market price. That'd be the $10 for cakes, and the least amount a seller is willing to sell at, which is a measurement of their marginal cost. And so, simple calculation: you take the price minus your willingness to sell, and that'd be your surplus. This is the profit to a producer. For example, Jack's here has a cost of $2, can sell the cake for 10, so 10 minus 2 is a profit of $8. So your producer surplus is the profit to a producer, seller, and the consumer surplus is profit to a consumer. And then Amir has a cost of $4. The price is still 10, so 10 minus 4 is 6. Tessa has a cost of $6. 10 minus 6 is 4. Vera is our marginal producer. Vera is just barely willing to bake that cake because the willingness to sell is exactly equal to the price. And typically with our marginal producer, they receive very little surplus or none at all. In this case, it's none. And Milo, Hugo, and Jade would not be producing cakes because they have a negative producer surplus if they did. Milo would have to take $12 worth of resources and Hugo's time to bake a cake that only brings in $10. That would be a net loss of 2. Hugo would lose $8 and Jade would lose 10, which is why they would not produce them. Which is just like with our consumers who stopped with 4 cakes on consumption, we're going to stop with 4 cakes here in terms of our production. Now the next step is to look at the producer surplus graphically, and that would be part 2 lecture.